Hey, y'all. Hey, we have a disclaimer. On this episode, we will be talking about meat birds, from chickens to turkeys to duck and quail. These are our opinions, and we suggest doing your research before you start a meat bird flock. Enjoy. Hey, Monica, did you know it's now even easier to listen to Around the Hay Bale podcast?
What? Really? How easy?
That's right. All you have to do is say, Alexa, play Round the Hay Bale podcast.
Playing Round the Hay Bale podcast on Apple Music.
Ooh, we're really fancy now.
Tune in to Round the Hay Bale every Monday at 9 a.m. Central Time.
Grab a cup of joe and let's gather round that hay bale. With your hosts, Anne from Andale Homestead, Cayce from Ormsby Farms, Monica from Bland's Promised Land Ranch, and Sandi from Suburban Homesteader, Wyoming, Arizona. Here they are. Hey, y'all, hey.
Y'all, hey, it's Ann from Andale Homestead.
What's up, everyone? It's Cayce over at Ormsby Farms.
And this is Sandi from Suburban Homesteader, Wyoming, Arizona.
And I'm Monica from Bland's Promised Land Ranch. So we are super excited to welcome in some good friends of ours. On this episode, we're going to be talking about meat birds. Everything you want to know, from varieties that are out there, where you can grow them if you need a place to grow them. And these people are really great at this. They grow meat birds on their own homestead, and they're like kind of low-key experts. Okay, I'm just serious about this. So we're really excited to talk to them again. Please welcome back our friends, the Naked Gardeners, Sydney and Tori. Welcome in.
Whoop, 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 whoop,
Yay,
whoop, whoop.
welcome in. Okay, so let's get started. We are actually going to start off right off the bat. We really want to get into this because there's probably quite a bit of information we want to cover. I know Casey's like super excited. He's been chomping at the bit for weeks.
I am. I'm like itching. I'm twitching.
I know. You're really excited. He's been like taking notes. He's doing all the things. So from all the different varieties of different birds that you can raise for meat, because there's lots of animals that you can raise for meat, but we're specifically talking poultry this time, whether it's chicken, turkeys, ducks, quail, geese, whatever it is, bird-wise. What would you say, Sydney and Tori, what would you say is your like number one bird for meat? And then can you give us like a couple more? Can you give us like an order from like favorite or best one to raise to like give me your top three?
I'm gonna like say what I'm gonna say before he says stuff, because like for me, like my experience, American breast, like if I could just have only American breasts on our homestead, I would be happy. I only have like some like olive egger mixers just to make our eggs look cute at the two stores that we carry them in. Like they keep selling out over there at the store, but the American breast for me is a phenomenal bird, not only because they start laying at 16 weeks. Think about that. Yeah, they're little fairy eggs at 16 weeks. That's usually our target point for processing them. The ones that we process, we go through a whole very specialized feed for them, and raw milk, fermented in corn their last 2 weeks of life, and actually this weekend on the 16th. So anybody on here in our area that wants to come and learn and help, we are processing on Saturday morning like 40 something, mostly roosters of the American breasts. Usually when we actually advertise on those classes, we let people take one home. We go over like everything that we do. We just didn't on this group. And it was a little selfish. I want more meat in our freezer for them. They're delicious. It's just a delicious bird.
That sounds wonderful. Now, from what I understand, they have a different color meat. Is that right?
If you do the French way, they will have their meat will be more marbleized and stuff. We don't do it the total French way because I believe the total French way is to lock them into a dark room while feeding them the corn that's been fermented in raw milk. That way they won't get mobile and roaming around doing all their foraging and stuff like that. They're just basically trying to rest the muscle of the meat to make it more tender. But for me, I would say the American breast or any type of heritage breed, especially for homesteaders, because being homesteaders, we're trying to be more self-sufficient. So a heritage breed will, in my opinion, will be a better bird to raise. Turkeys is another one of my personal favorite, just because I've considered them as puppies with feathers. I was able to train those were actually our first meat birds on our property. When we first got onto this property, everybody told me turkeys find a way to kill themselves. So we were going to start off with about 5. And then when somebody told me that, I was like, okay, we'll go to 10. That way, if 5 die, we'll still be left with a good batch. And then there were certain people that were possibly interested in purchasing the meat bird. So I said it went from 10 to 20. That way, if half of them died, I'll still be good off. Wind up out of all of them, 16 mated that we kept alive. 4 of them we had to cull because of the issues of they had some kind of deformity or something like that. But for me, if I could do only three poultry, I would do the American breast or heritage breed, ducks, if we could find a processor that would process ducks, and geese. Emden
breed, which is our next round. We're gonna get out of this Chinese and go into the Emden geese.
Yeah, and the Peking duck.
Can I just say that I have a funny story when you said that you try to find a processor for duck? So before, when I started thinking that I was going to do meat birds on my homestead, I thought I was going to be raising cows, I guess, and called a couple processors and I said, I'm wanting to find a processor for chickens. And I said, hello. And I think 3 of them hung up on me. So I kind of figured out that most of the poultry is going to be done here on the homestead. But I'm also glad that you said turkeys, because that's our major big thing right now on our homestead that we're doing is we're selling and raising a red bourbon and blue slate mix turkey meat. Ours do get pretty big. My baby daddy, he's definitely not a puppy dog, but he's a mean old big giant juicy thing. And they do like to kill themselves. They wake up in the morning and their to-do list is like, how can I die today? And they have 5 options and they go through all 5 options during the 24 hours. So I'm glad that y'all said turkeys, because turkey meat is good, but it is hard. And I learned that from Monica. So Monica, I know you want to piggyback on that statement.
Yeah, so I think I totally agree with them. One, the top 3, kind of the birds, at least, turkeys are amazing. We've kind of moved on to turkeys now as one of our main sources. Besides, we do rabbit and stuff like that. We have other meat sources here, but we really love our turkeys for the poultry. And so we have some red bourbons and we've got some other heritage breed kind of mixes. We got some intermingling there, but we just processed 2 red bourbons yesterday, as a matter of fact, and we actually came away with a boy that was a little bit over 9 pounds, and he free ranges. They free range all over the place. It's not like they just get special stuff. They're not locked in a smaller space. They have pretty much anywhere they want to roam, and they roam all day, and then in the evening we lock them up. And so for him to be a little over 9 pounds, we were pretty excited, because I think he's only about 6 months old, which is probably longer than most people keep them, but I was pretty happy with him. And the only reason why I got rid of him was because he was attacking our dogs. Him and Posse, we call them the Jerky Jakes. They run around and they were like attacking the blue heelers. They thought it was fun. And so he was the leader of the pack. So we decided, time to go, buddy. But the kids love it. The family, the whole family eats that meat. And so that's one of the huge things for us. Now, if you don't have room to raise turkeys, I think that, Sydney and Tori made a good point, that the heritage breed chickens, what do you mean by heritage breed chickens, Sydney, just for people who don't know what you mean by heritage breed?
This is important.
So heritage breed is what basically, in my opinion, is almost like a dual purpose bird that's good for egg layer and for meat. Now, with dual purpose bird, you run the risk of you're not going to get a lot of eggs and you won't get that much meat. However,
you have to find a sweet spot.
Yeah, so you basically have to find the good with the bad. I think Belfelder was like one of the first, true meat bird.
We've had customers get eggs from us to hatch out and try American breast that had those that we have flipped over to American breast.
Yeah. But it's just, since we started this journey as from gardeners to now accidental farmers as foodies, that was one of the main things that we were looking for. I was looking for as I Googled for the best tasting chickens, and American breast came up. It's supposed to be the Wagyu of chickens. So, but any heritage breed will be good. The only thing compared to the Cornish Cross or the Freedom Rangers, their feed conversion is not going to be as great as those two birds, because they're just grow so fast that they actually outgrow their feathers. I feel that those birds are not really considered homesteading animals, because you have to rely on the hatchery, but they're good for production if you're going to be doing it for selling your meat. If that's your main goal, is to provide food for your family and out for the community.
Now, on that note, since you just finished saying that, a little drama I want to add to this, a little thing I'm pissed off about is that, no. Y'all do your homework, okay? Hatcheries will not process, or not hatcheries, but butchers that process chickens.
Most processors.
We've only found one, okay? It's extremely rare to find a processor that will process any chickens after 8 weeks.
10 weeks.
10 weeks?
Wendy Meadows will do
definitely 8 weeks. Okay. 10 weeks is pushing it. Okay. But the ideal time frame to process the American breast is at 16 weeks. Mind you, they eat half as much as the others. It's a good bird, but we cannot get there is a processor.
It's about 2.5 hours away from here.
It's a drive.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that didn't mean to cut you off, but that is one of the big things about with poultry processor is finding a good one that will fit your needs. Our needs are to have a processor for a heritage breed and to also do ground meat. Most processor won't do the ground meat because they have to purchase that deboning machine that's probably like 20 grand, and they just don't have the time and the resources to provide that. But the one in 2.5 hours away does.
And mind you, I'm just going to say this, like, if you're just a homesteader and you're just doing this for yourself, not a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
We're in 2 stores. We are foodies. We have ideas of a niche that we want to fill, like chicken sausage for the people that will not eat pork. Like we have like lamb bacon for the people that don't.
So good.
Oh my God, it's so good. Like we're trying to fill a niche, like we are business people that are foodies, right? So this is kind of like an interesting journey for us. And I feel like we are a little ahead of the curve on hearing back from people in our area within a 2-hour drive that will do the things that we want.
Well, I think that, you saying that for the American breast compared to the Cornish cross is important, because if you are a homesteader, okay, you look at, okay, you process in what, 7 to 8, maybe 9 weeks if you're lucky. Not many people do 9 weeks for the Cornish cross. And you think, ooh, 16 weeks for the American breast. That must be a lot more food. That must be a lot more this. One thing that you have to remember is it self-sustainable? We talk about this in our podcast so many times. Over the 5 seasons that we've had this podcast, we talk about self-sustainability. Cornish cross will, now, yes, I will say this because I know I'm going to get the comments, that they had this one Cornish cross that was able to get to that age, that laid an egg, and blase, wonderful. But 90% of the time, you are not going to get the Cornish cross to the age that they are able to lay eggs to reproduce. And we all know that it takes a boy and a girl to reproduce, to continue on to continue on the meat processing business of it. If you want to grow your own meat, you have to be able to have someone that is going to produce more babies that turn into more meat. Otherwise, you are dependent on the hatcheries or on another homestead who is producing your calf or your piglet or your whatever it is. If you want to be self-sustainable, you need to figure out a turkey, a chicken, or any type of meat. How can you keep them on your homestead and produce more without having to rely on somebody else? Sandi, I know that you were wanting to jump in on that conversation too.
Well, I think it's important that as homesteaders, we ask the questions. Do we want just meat bird? Do we want meat and egg birds? Like, I have a suburban homestead, so I don't have a lot of room. I can only have 5 chickens at a time. That's regulations that I have to live by. So I have to look at it. How much meat can I get from those birds versus how many eggs I can get? So those are questions. Am I going to have to replace them each year, or do I want a flock so that, like Cayce said, they're laying eggs? Do I have enough space for them to be pastured, in a pasture? Or are they going to be more confined? And how much of a quick turnover? I think those are questions that every homesteader has to think about before they purchase turkeys, quails, chickens, ducks, geese, anything that they're going to do. What's your long-term goals? And I think that's an important thing, because you want to be self-sustaining. I live in the north, where you guys live in the south, where for me, long-term bird for a chicken, I would go with the Icelandic landrace, because they'll go out into the snow, where some of the other birds, if I'm going to keep them year round, that's not possible. And I think Monica wanted to come in too.
Well, I think what you made a really good point. It was really, what I really wanted to say was, when you look at the whole thing, you have to know, before you invest in any of these birds, really think about all the details of it. A lot of times we jump into things, and I'm one of the first people on here that'll say, just jump, just do it. Just, if you have a great idea, just go for it. But I also think there needs to be, Tori's like, no way, bad idea, lady. But I also am, because I know they're big researchers. They research it, they look into it, they look at the pros and the cons, and I agree with all that. I love that. And I love them for that, because they're very meticulous and methodical in that way. That's how Eric is, right? He's that part of my brain that I am not. But I also do firmly believe you should really know what investment you're making in this, because if you invest in duck because you're like, oh, I love duck, it's great, I had it at a restaurant once and it's amazing. Okay, well, you need to know what ducks need. If you don't have a pond or a place for them to swim, then you need to get a little baby pool. You need to know what kind of mess they make. Look into them, do your research. And I highly suggest that for all the different types of meat birds. It's just like when you plant a garden, you're going to look at what kind of vegetables or fruit and things you're going to plant. And you want to plant things that are something that you're going to be able to get the seeds from again and again. It's one of these self-sustaining things. So if you're looking at meat birds and meat poultry in general, it's just like when you're doing a garden or anything else in this homesteading life. Take your time, figure out what you're going to do, figure out where you're going to have that investment and that return and how long it's going to take and those type of things. Miss Ann, did you have something you wanted to add? You look like you were leaning in.
I'm contemplating is what I'm doing. And because I live in a neighborhood as well. Sandy and I both live in a neighborhood. And so I'm not supposed to have more than 4 or 5 chickens per lot that I have. However, we could probably bend the rules for 10 weeks. But I'm not sure how I could. I mean, I don't even know where to begin as far as uh, meat birds. Do you get a separate pen for them? Can they be in a small coop? Do they need a ton of space? Where do I find out what kind of food that they need? What do I do? And so the next,
I was going to say, Sydney and Tori, do you guys want to explain and kind of give how do we start? For someone like Miss Ann that's listening to this episode, how does she start? What does she do?
Great question. For me, I would suggest finding someone that does it near you. That way that they can be your mentor. They can provide you guidance. That way, when it's time to harvest that animal, you can go there and see if this is something that you're going to do. Because one of the rules that we have is before we bring an animal onto our property, even though we've broken that rule twice now, is to make sure we already learn how to process that animal before we get it onto our property, and to have a home for it. Because there's been, when we first got to this place, we're on 6.5 acres. We've had plenty of people offer us ducks, geese, sheep, goats, and stuff. We
could have a whole zoo.
Yeah, but we told them no.
A camel.
We told them no. We got to learn. There's babysit, like Monica said. I do a lot of research. I go at least 3 months of research,
and I just say no. I just say no,
and I just ignore her, and I just go ahead with the no emus. No, I already did research about that.
I will only do stuff like that for agritourism interests.
Yeah, maybe
you call me. You call me when you're ready.
What you want me to call you?
Call me Monica.
Okay. But start there. Get you a mentor and go through a class of how to process, because it'll be sucked. And we've seen this in some of our East Texas home co-op groups. They'll get some animals and it's time to process. Like, oh, can somebody please come to my property and butcher? And they'll be probably like,
Our number one rule, like when we tell people that even think about this life, you better take a class and learn how to process a chicken before you get a chicken.
Yeah.
Before you get a chicken, learn how to process it. And the reason for that is, and I know and I understand that there's people that don't want to do that kind of thing, but the thing is that with that thought, you're going to get animals, aggressive roosters that hurt your hens, that cause more harm. So you are causing more harm and not learning how to protect your flock.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If you do not learn how to do that first.
Yeah. So I will start there. As far as feed, I've seen people feed different things. Some people free range their animals that has the property to allow them to feed off there. Some people add supplemental feed to their feed. Each bird requires different feed. Meat bird require a high protein diet. Egg layers require a lower protein with higher calcium in there, along with other nutrients that you need for that particular animal, just like with any animal. So you'll have to, depend on what bird that you have, you will have to get that. Same with even with turkeys. Turkeys require high like protein. A 26, 28%.
29%.
Yeah. And sometimes you got to watch your protein level on different animals, because what they'll have they'll have an angel, what they call the angel wing, where the almost look like a deformed wing and whatnot. So you want to be mindful of what type of feed that you're giving particular animals. Even with waterfowl have to have a higher percent of niacin in their feed, especially when they're starting off, because they need that requirement. Otherwise, they won't function right and they wind up dying off. We learned that horrible mistake our first time going to raising waterfowl. We had a mentor though that told us to add some what you add in there, yeast,
The
brewery yeast,
brewer's yeast, brewery
Yeah.
yeast,
or
or peas.
nutritional
yeah,
yeast.
nutritional yeast.
Yes, I add, and I have not had any problems since I
Yep.
started adding nutritional yeast. The same stuff that they sell at the store for us to season our food.
Mhm.
Exactly.
I can add that to their water.
Yeah.
Just a little every time, like I put water in there. And I have not had the same problems since that first time.
Now, Monica also mentioned about waterfowl. You don't really need a pond. You just need a container full of water to clear out their nostrils. That's what they mostly do. I like waterfowl because you really don't have to feed them. I mean, they're
lower maintenance.
95% of their diet is mostly grass. Now we give them treats at the end of the day. Those are the only animals that we allow free range on our property.
They are trained.
Yeah, so they know. We give them a call. Monica's son does like bedtime. And when I first was over there, I was like, what in the world? We was raising ours for almost like a year. We was getting frustrated. We was like, oh my God, I'm about to pull out a pistol. And
they're like teenagers. Seriously, like ducks, if you have never been a parent, they are the teenager you haven't raised yet. I have raised teenagers. I have full grown adults like functioning in life. So now when I got ducks, I was having like these flashbacks of teenagers in my life, and I didn't like it. I did not like it.
Yeah, they are messy, but I love them to death. They're
I'm so glad that y'all have said that ducks and waterfowl is easy. I mean, I'm not going to call any of my family out, Susan and Marcus, but I'm just going to say that when I said that I wanted ducks on my homestead and they turned me down, I want them to listen to this episode so they know that I was correct in wanting ducks on the homestead. Just saying.
Ducks are so easy, and their eggs, Sydney, their eggs are bomb. Yeah. They're so good.
So you heard it here from Sydney, Tori, and Monica. I'm not going to say their names again, Susan and Marcus, but I'm just going to say that it may be time that we get duck. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Sydney.
Well, the good thing I love about ducks, yes, they are messy. However, unlike chickens, you don't have to play Easter egg with their eggs.
They lay in the morning.
Yeah, you got to wash them, but
yeah, they lay every morning pretty much around like on the same time. Like we know if we keep our ducks in their pen until 9:30 or 10 o'clock, their eggs will be there in a big pile, all neat. Like they all went in there. They'd be like, oh, this is where we're laying today. Got you. And they lay all in the same area. Every now and then there's some stray or some straggler that'll be taking her egg and laying it outside. I don't know how she did it, but they do sometimes. But yes, they're really nice because it looks like, chickens will lay everywhere. And while we're talking about too, I think we covered a lot of the whole how to. I think like Sydney said, it is super important before you invest in any poultry or any kind of meat animal or any animal, I think in general. And I've said this time and time again, if you invest in any animal for your homestead, you should, as a responsible animal owner, know how to handle that animal from the beginning to the end. Most people think, oh, I'm going to go get this animal because it's cute and it's wonderful and it's amazing. And they don't know how to properly take care of it at the end of its life. Miss Ann has beautiful chickens that she eats their eggs and they're there for her pleasure and and she may never want to eat them, obviously. But what happens if they don't die of natural causes and she has to put one out of its misery because maybe it did get attacked or something happened? You have to know how to at least end its life for its value to you. We've had to put down animals because they were so injured that there's nothing we could do. And that is a hard place to be in, but you have to know how to do that. It is your job as a good steward of your homestead, of your animals and of your property. And you should. And I think that's the best thing you can ever said to people is if you're going to invest in an animal, make sure you know how to take care of it from the beginning all the way to the end.
And that's so true, Monica. I'm glad that you said that. Especially, I want to say and kind of piggyback on your comment because I am the newbie-er of the homesteaders. And all of my podcast hosts over the 5 seasons have told me that. Cayce, make sure before you bring somebody onto your homestead that you know how to deal with it from the beginning to the end. And let me tell you, the very beginning when I had chickens, I never held any of my chickens at all. Like, at all. And Monica was like, boy, please, I need you to take your big butt out there and grab up one of them chickens and just hold it for a second. You do not believe how much more power you feel that you have now that I know, okay, I know how to process it if something happens to it, or I know how to take care of it if I've watched Miss Andale video on, the Bumblefoot. I mean, you need to, just because you've seen it on YouTube or you saw it on Instagram and you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to be like Tori and Sydney off of social media and have all the, no, do your research. They did their research and they know what they have on their homestead. I know what I have on my homestead. I've done my research. Sandi and Monica, we've all done our research before we got it. If you don't want to have meat birds, and if you can't process that meat bird, then you may not want to have that meat bird on your homestead. Just say it. I know that's very controversial for many people listening is like, no, I can always take it to a processor. What happens if there's not a processor? What you going to do then? You're going to let the birds suffer and, die because they've gotten too big or, which is the main thing for chicken is they get so big. So, Cornish cross. Sorry, let's talk about Cornish cross. They get so big so fast that it is unhumane to let them live past 8 weeks. You are doing them a misjustice. So know what you're doing before you go into it.
Yeah.
There's tons of videos. And y'all talked about that you went to different classes. One thing here in where I live is there's a small little community at the farmer's market that says, hey, who has the most land? And whoever has the most land will bring all of our chickens and we can process as like a party. Let's have a little barbecue party and we'll all process the chickens together. That's how we do it here. We learn from people who have done it for years and years and years and years. And then you're the person in a couple of years that have done it for years and years and years. So I'm going to bounce it back over to Monica because Monica is one of the people that I've learned a lot of this from.
I think that you made such a great point. You go to those classes, you find yourself the mentors. Everything that the Naked Gardeners have said has so much value to it. And based upon that, I want to say, come back next week for our next episode, because we are going to tell you all the things you want to know about their favorite meat bird, the American Brise. Brise, however you say it, all those ways. That is one bird. And we're going to figure out exactly how to say it. We're going to talk about all the things you need to know about that bird and why that bird is their favorite. We're going to get a little more in depth. We're going to dig deeper. And we want you to be back here. So if you're interested in meat, birds, chickens in particular, come back next week because we're digging deep and we want you to be here for all the things. And if you have questions about any of this, any of the poultry, any of the things we've said today, make sure you just comment and you check it out. We're on YouTube. They're on YouTube. Everybody's on YouTube. And we're also live on Friday on our radio show. So you can come in and ask questions and we can chat a little bit more. So come back next week. We'll see you then. Until then, bye y'all. Bye.
Are you enjoying the Hay Bale topics? To learn more, click on the LinkTree link to get all our product recommendations along with discount codes and more.